see. Are we ready? Okay. Hey everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Everybody's logging on. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday night again. And we are back at Talk About It Tuesday with Dr. Lori. Hi everybody that's coming in, pulling up, and I'm so excited to be back with you guys on tonight. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell any ladies you know that we are live talking about women's health. And tonight I'm talking about a topic I get asked about like literally all the time. And in fact, a lot of you guys had emailed and texted and was like, when can you talk about this? When can you talk about hormones and stuff like that? So that's where we're going tonight. So just waiting for a few more people to get online and join so we can start. And hi everybody that's coming in. Hey Miss Brenda, how are you? And I am gonna give everybody a couple minutes, but I'm just gonna do 30 minutes. So I'm not gonna wait too much longer. I'm gonna go ahead and try to just get started because this is a topic that we all hear about. And honestly, I probably won't even finish it tonight. We'll probably do this in like 2 parts because this first part's going to take a while to kind of just break down everybody what's going on. But like literally, hey Kim, literally, I have these questions asked to me every single day in my office. Every day I have people coming in thinking, some of them think they're going crazy, honestly, because of their hormones and because of menopause and perimenopause. So tonight we are going to dig in to it just, I'm gonna go deep, but like I said, it may not be all in one night. So let's see, it's 9:03, and because I don't want to belabor the night, we are going to go ahead and get started talking about hormones. Hey Denise, how are you? And then if you guys missed any of the replays or anything, I do have a YouTube channel under the same name, Dr. Lori J. So after I do it here, we repost it on the YouTube channel. You can always go and catch the replay like on the way at another time. Oh yeah, it's the M word. It's the M word, menopause. Some of you saw my graphic with the 7 witches of menopause, and they were like, itchy and bitchy and psycho and all these other names. And I saw it and I kind of laughed because a lot of people come in with all those symptoms and all that symptomology. And we just kind of have to make them know, one, that if you're going through all that crazy stuff, you're not like the only person. Like you're not crazy, and you're not, just out there losing your mind. The hormones and the hormonal imbalances can really, really take a toll on you. In fact, fun fact, so when people get a hysterectomy, the hysterectomy came from the word hysteria, because men used to believe that when women went through the menopause in particular, that the change made them crazy. And if they took the uterus out, they would take the hysteria out and they would stop being crazy. So that word hysterectomy really comes from a really jacked up kind of a meaning, because the men believed that the uterus was making women hysterical, and taking it out would somehow cure them. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about menopause, right? So basically, I'm just going to start with the basics so everybody can kind of get an idea as to what it is we're talking about when we mention menopause. Let's start with the basic, like hormones, right? So everybody has hormones in their body. In women, we primarily have estrogen and progesterone, right? We also have some testosterone. Men have way more testosterone than women do, but primarily we have estrogen and progesterone and some testosterone. So there are actually 3 types of estrogen in the body, but for the purpose of this conversation, we'll just call it estrogen, just make it easy. So when you're like, 12, 13, whatever, 14, whatever, you start getting a period and you start having your monthly cycle and it comes and goes. And you have like these levels of estrogen and progesterone. And you grow up, you have kids or whatever, and you kind of have this nice, normal kind of a flow of the estrogen and the progesterone and kind of goes back and forth every month. And that's how your cycle pretty much progresses. But then somewhere around your late 30s, early 40s, you really start to have changes in your estrogen and your progesterone, and the levels start to drop. So like basically estrogen and progesterone is thought to do some like 400 functions in the body. It has things to do with like your skin, your hair, your temperature regulation, the way you metabolize fat, your sexual functioning, your sex drive, your mood, your anxiety. These hormones have to do with all of these functions in your body, and it said they do some like 400 different things in your body. They help you with your bone health and your heart health and breast health. They help you prevent, they help you with your cognition, help you not be forgetful, and help your brain function properly, right? So all this is happening every month. It's going good. You're having your period or whatever. You're having maybe a little bit of regular, but you're having it. And it's kind of going up and down, and it's kind of doing what it's supposed to do. Then somewhere in your mid-40s, your body starts to go a little wacky. And it starts to like, these levels that have been kind of like up here begin to like decline, right? And so everything that they were doing up to this point now starts to have some suffering effects, right? So I tend to call menopause like hormone withdrawal, right? Not just menopause, but you've been having this hormone, you've been doing well with it, you've been feeling good, sleeping good, living good, and all this stuff, and all of a sudden your body's like, whoa, what's going on? These substances that I'm used to getting, I'm not getting anymore. And to me, I just liken it down to like the way I drink coffee in the morning. If I don't drink it, I get a little headache. I feel some type of way because I don't have my regular coffee. Well, imagine having something that affects your entire body for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and then all of a sudden you don't have it anymore. Or all of a sudden the levels you used to have are now kind of cut in half, and you're trying to like figure out what's happening. Well, that is pretty much what happens when you hit menopause, right? So it's no wonder that you're kind of like crazy when you hit it, because everything that the hormones have been doing have been keeping you at a certain level, and now they're pretty much gone, or they're going, right? So the official definition of menopause, full out menopause, is when your menstrual cycle has been gone for an entire calendar year, right? So that means that if you've gone a full 12 months with no period, then that means that you are officially considered in menopause, right? As long as your periods are still coming and kind of coming on a regular type basis, well, you're what they call premenopause. The area that gets kind of funny on the inside is perimenopause, because the perimenopause is the part that you feel like you are crazy because you don't know what's going on and everything is kind of all over the place. Now, for my ladies who are listening who've already had a hysterectomy, you will not have as much of an indicator because you don't have periods anymore, right? So as long as when you had your hysterectomy, they didn't take out your ovaries, because the ovaries kind of are the primary place where the hormones get made. As long as they didn't take out your ovaries, you'll go through menopause at the regular time you would have anyway. You just won't know it by the fact that you won't have a period to get irregular or to go away or whatever. So you won't be as easy for you to tell, right? So you may just be like, I feel a little weird, I feel a little different, but again, you won't have that menstrual cycle. So the way you have to, for those ladies, usually we do blood work, we do blood tests, and we check certain levels of not just your hormones, but we check a level called your FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone, right? And I go, what's that? You said estrogen and progesterone. Okay, yeah, but FSH is like made from a gland in your brain called the pituitary gland, right? And so the pituitary gland works with the ovaries on like a feedback like mechanism, right? So when estradiol goes down, the brain puts out this FSH molecule to try to kick the ovaries on. So almost like basically like a generator and like two batteries. So if your ovaries are the batteries and they're dying, right? So now the generator's putting out more power to try to kick the ovaries on and try to make them turn over, right? So if the pituitary is the brain, then the ovaries are the batteries, and they're pretty much, your brain is putting out higher and higher amounts of this FSH to kick it on. So one of the blood tests that we do when you come in for the lab is we'll check your FSH. So if your FSH is considered over like 23, that's technically considered, well, that's considered in menopause, but it can be as high as 100. Like I've seen ladies have FSH of 100, 110, whatever, 70, but that's because their ovaries are just, they're done. They're not really working anymore. And so what happens is the brain keeps putting out more and more and more FSH to try to make the ovaries do something. And they're just like, yeah, no, we're done. We're not doing anything else. And so that's usually when a patient is in full-blown menopause. Now, like I said, if you don't have a period, you won't know unless you start having all the symptoms, right? So what are the symptoms? So let's go back to ladies who have a uterus. So if you have a uterus, right, one of the main things you'll notice is that your periods are wacky, all out of place. They come a couple months, they don't come some months, you're late a month, you're 2 weeks late, 3 weeks late, kind of just all over the place. Never really know when it's going to come. Some women will bleed too much. Well, it'll come and it'll stay too long and it won't go off on time. They'll kind of just be like, okay, it's still here, or it'll come and then 2 weeks later, it'll like come back another time. Or come back 2 weeks later, and then you're like, okay, I feel like I'm just bleeding all the time. And sometimes that's what it is. And there's a question about, is anything to prolong getting menopause? Is it just genetics? A lot of time it is genetics. A lot of times you can gauge your menopausal age based on kind of how old your mother was when she went through menopause. If you don't know that age, some of the things that can kind of hasten it or make it faster. One of the main things is cigarette smoking. Heavier smokers tend to be done a lot sooner than other women tend to be done. As far as prolonging it, I don't believe there's anything you can do to actually make your periods come longer and longer, except for, living a healthy lifestyle. But more often than not, they're kind of just programmed to when your body's gonna go through it based on when the eggs just stop kind of hatching, right? Excuse me. But anyway, so your periods get wacky. Well, and that's part of it. That's not like the whole thing. a lot of times you get depressed or have this sudden like onset of anxiety. People who haven't necessarily been anxious before, now they don't want to go outside or they're worried about everything. Depression and anxiety is a lot. In fact, about half or more of the patients that I end up helping them through menopause, by the time they come to me, they're already taking like antidepressants, because a lot of times they go to their regular doctor and their regular doctor says, oh, you're depressed, oh, you're 45, you're just depressed, and they get a lot of antidepressants, and they're on lots of those, or anxiety medicine, Xanax and whatnot. And a lot of times it's that their hormones are just way out of whack and they have to kind of get back on track. And I'm telling you, about half the ladies come to me I've even gotten some ladies off of antidepressants because we fix their hormones and then they feel better and they don't want to be on the antidepressants. Some of the other things is sex drive. You know, my ladies who are married, they're coming in and they're like, if I don't get some sex drive back, I'm not going to have a husband. And so they when the hormones decline, the sex drive declines. They don't want to be bothered, and they want some help with that, because the husband, he still wants to, right? One of the other issues we have a lot of people coming in complaining of is just their mood swings. They're just really irritable and kind of mean. One of the graphic I put up, one of the witches was like psycho, right? And so, you know, it sounds funny, but a lot of my ladies come in and they're really stressed because they feel like they're going crazy and they feel like they're almost out of their body because they're doing all this stuff and they're going off on their family and their friends, or mostly their family, and like they can't pull it back in, and they kind of like, why was I mad about that when it's all over? And then sometimes they're like crying because they're all emotional because they were mad at everybody. And so they're in a situation where they're back and forth. And I remember, my mom's not on here so I can say this. If y'all know my mother, then don't tell her I said it. But I remember like probably 20 years ago, she was like in the throes of menopause, like crazy. She had a really bad like menopause situation. So I was at her house. I wasn't even living there. I was just there like for the weekend or something. And it's like really late at night. It's like 10:30 at night. Everybody's going to go to bed trying to wind down for the night or whatever. And she starts like slamming stuff and like banging stuff around. And we're like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, where's my makeup brush? And we're like, makeup? She's like, it's 10:30. You got pajamas on. Where you going? And it just set her off that the makeup brush was not where she thought it was supposed to be in that particular moment. And as a result, she like lit the whole house up. I think my younger brother got a beating. Like, it was crazy. But she was like really in the throes of menopause. And at the time, I had just got out of medical school. I didn't even know much about it. And I couldn't do anything to help her. But I thought she had really like cracked up. The stuff that she would go off about would be like, this makes no sense, right? But now I know some years later that she was having a really bad menopausal reaction. And what I will say about women in menopause is that women who have had issues with PMS throughout their lives tend to have worse menopausal symptoms. Sometimes women who are just, if they have really bad cramps or really bad mood swings before they get their menstruation, they will often have a harder time with menopause and need a lot more help. Some women won't have quite as much, but some will have some really severe issues and really kind of need some help kind of getting through that transition. But mood swings is another thing. Another thing is cognition, focus. Being able to remember stuff, like, walking into a room, like, what did I come here for? And you go back out and you're like, what did I do? That all has to do with the fluctuations in your hormones and the fluctuations and what's going on in your brain, so that your cognition isn't that strong and you often can't focus like you used to focus. And then additionally, See, look, right there, boom. And of course, hot flashes are like the worst. Like, okay, just can I be transparent? I had some hot flashes for the first time a few months ago. What was that? That's not of God. Like, it's just not, it's the devil. I was like, this is ridiculous. I had never really had one until then, but it's really bad. And I started like really digging into it. And it just has to do with the thermal regulation within your body being off kilter, off balance, all due to the lack of hormones. And I checked my hormones, and my FSH had like shot way higher than it had ever been before. And I was like, oh my goodness. But again, I'm not quite menopausal, kind of perimenopause. So I am talking from my own experience now, because I totally understand how some of those feel, and they kind of come on without warning. Alcohol can trigger your hot flashes, sweets, chocolate, stressful situations can trigger them. And for a lot of women, they really have a hard time because it wakes them up in the middle of the night. Like, so like you're laying in bed, you're sleeping, life is good, and all of a sudden your body catches on fire, or so it feels, and now your sleep is up. And I have some patients who come and they have hot flashes as much as every 30 minutes throughout the course of a night, which is a lot of sleep interruption. And so they're taking Ambien and different kinds of pills. And so they're also dealing with husbands who are like, what's wrong with you? Because they're freezing one minute and they're hot the next minute, and going through all these situations. And it has a lot to do with their hormones fluctuating so much throughout the course of this menopausal transition, right? So perimenopause can last anywhere from 2 to 5 years. That sucks, right? I know, it's really bad. But yeah, 2 to 5 years, you can be going through the back and forth of it all, the ups and the downs of it all, and kind of not knowing what's going on. And again, until it's gone for a year. So like I have some patients who will be like at month number 10 of like no period, and be like, woohoo, I'm almost there. And then at month number 10, they get a period and they have to start the clock for a whole nother year again. So it can take some time to go through the perimenopausal period to get to the place where there is no more cycle at all and you're fully at menopause. Well, sounds like it'd be cool. Not so much, because then once you're all the way done and your hormones are completely depleted, now we have issues with, if you didn't want to have sex before, well, now you can't. Well, you can, but you kind of can't, because vaginal dryness is a problem and painful sex is a problem, because the estrogen that you were getting was also feeding the vagina and giving that vagina its elasticity and giving it its ability to stretch. Now you don't have that anymore. And when you do try to have sex, it can be painful. It can have bleeding. It could be complicated. It really can. And ladies, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't know if anybody told you this before. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. The vagina will get small and it can shrink. Did you know it can shrink? It can shrink. And the tissue can get really pale, and you can shrink. And then when you really want to try, it won't work. I'm telling you, I've seen it. Okay, and if it gets really bad, it can get so small to the point where it almost kind of closes up, and we have to use dilators and things to help ladies reopen it, so to speak. So if you can have sex, if it's something available, by all means, do that, because otherwise it can and will shrink up on you, and then you have to use some dilators to kind of get it back, or use some hormone cream to kind of help bring it back to life. So so those are a lot of the symptoms of menopause. Those are ones we kind of know about a lot of, but then there's some other health benefits that our risk of certain things increases after menopause. First of all, being heart disease. You know, heart disease is the number one killer of women. It's not breast cancer, it's not cervical cancer, it's heart disease and heart attacks. And that's primarily after menopause, because we don't have the protection of the estrogens anymore once we get into menopause. And that estrogen has been protecting our heart for quite a few years. And the other thing is osteoporosis. It protects our bones. So again, as I mentioned before, even if you've had a hysterectomy or you're thinking about having a hysterectomy, I suggest that you don't remove your ovaries unless they are diseased, unless there is a reason to take them out, because the ovaries are still functioning to a degree, still helping protect things, because that hormone that the ovaries are producing are going to be protective against many diseases and protect many organ systems within your body, not just your vagina. Okay. And so again, the ovaries produce the majority of the estrogen and the progesterone in our bodies. And as long as they are still in, we are still getting them. So how do you know? As I mentioned before, get some blood work done. Go to your doctor, get the FSH checked, get your LH checked, get your estradiol levels checked, and then have a conversation, if your doctor is okay with it, with how you can replace, a couple other things I don't know if you can replace your hormones. Some other symptoms of hormone deficiency, breast tenderness, migraine headaches, if you're prone to migraines, or even if you weren't prone to migraines. Another fun fact, in my mid-40s, I started getting a migraine headache every single month before I would have a cycle. And I didn't know for a long time. I didn't make a connection on it for a long time as to what it was. So I thought I was having a stroke and doing all types of stuff and passing out. And it was a menstrual migraine due to a hormone deficiency. So if you have new onset migraines, that can be hormones. It really is amazing and uncanny how many organ systems these hormones affect, and how going through that perimenopausal transition can really set everything kind of off, and how it can affect so many different things, and how it can cause issues in so many areas, and even in your relationships. If you're really being mean to everybody, I can always tell when patients come in and they really need some hormones, because they're a little bit crazy and sometimes a little bit irrational and sometimes really, really mean. And once we get them on hormones, they're like, oh, hey. But, a lot of times they're not pre-hormone. They're kind of a little bit to deal with. But anyway, again, menopause is you're not crazy. It's definitely something that can be managed and can be managed well. It just depends on the what, the where, the why, and what your specific symptoms are like and what your specific issues are. I think if you're concerned, if you're in menopause, one of the first things you got to do is just get your levels checked. Let's just see where you are and then see what you need to get to a better place. But if you go into your primary doctor and they just want to give you antidepressants and Xanax and stuff like that, seek someone else, seek a different place, because there are other options, and there are many options available. You just have to make sure you're going to a doctor that knows what to give you and knows what some of those options are, and kind of counsel you through some of those options. And some of them are natural, some of them are medications. It just depends on what it is you're trying to get through. But in any case, it's not the end of the world. You can get through it, and you can manage it and still have a life. I mean, the reality of it is you're going to be in menopause for a better half of your life. If you're, say, 50 when you go through, and the average age, by the way, is 51 years of age is the average age for menopause. So it can be anywhere from 38 all the way into 56. It just depends on the individual. But if you're 51 and you live till you're 80, that's 30 years that you have to deal with all that crazy, and 30 years that you have to have all these symptoms. Now, do the symptoms ever get better? They do, but now they gave men Viagra. So now the men still want to have sex because, you know, they 75 with Viagra, and the women are like, no, I'm good. For women, there's a question about does being, sorry if I logged out on Instagram, my back, about being a diabetic. No, not really. Being diabetic shouldn't take away your desires. It's more so menopause. It's the deficiencies of some of your testosterone levels, coupled with your estrogen levels and the dryness and so forth, that takes away the desire. So the diabetic, excuse me, the diabetes shouldn't really, not for women. Sometimes with men, they have a problem with ED, like they can't have an erection or whatever. For diabetes, or for women, it shouldn't take your desire away. And there's a question on here about itching, and that can be menopause as well. If you're having a lot of itching, be it vaginal or otherwise, skin itching is a symptom. Some ladies don't necessarily get hot flashes, but they get itchy. It's weird, but sometimes getting the hormone situated will help that as well, because again, the estrogen affects everything. So the elasticity in your skin, the collagen, all that has to do with your estrogen levels. And as they decrease, you can get sagging, you can get dryness, all those things that happen as a result of not having the levels where you need it to be. And I had another question. I'm trying to see on Facebook. I had another question. If I can find it. Let me see. A question about memory. Oh, right. One thing I want to say is that another reason that a lot more women than men get Alzheimer's is because they have such a sharp decline in their hormone levels at menopause, and the hormone levels, the higher hormone levels, help to increase our cognition and decrease the tangles that you see in Alzheimer's disease, and so. Again, all these, the hormones play a huge role. I'm pretty much out of time, so I don't want to go over 30 minutes. So I hate to cliffhanger you guys, but next week when I come back, I will go through treatment options for the flashes and so forth and so on, and kind of break those down because they get a little bit more complicated. But I just wanted to kind of start the conversation tonight. Knowing what it is, all the things that it can cause, and what we can try to do to make it better. Because otherwise we'd be on here for hours, and I promise everybody 30 minutes. So we will log off for now, but come back next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and we're going to do Menopause Part 2. And we're going to talk about all the treatment options and natural ways, synthetic ways, etc., all that you can learn to get through the transition and to make it out on the other side and still live a great, hormonally optimized life. Okay, guys, thanks so much again for logging in. I'm going to log off now, and I'll see you all next week. The replay will be available on my Facebook page and as well on my YouTube page, which is also Dr. Lori J. See you guys later.